Why don't we I'll call this meeting to order. Ada, the public notice statement, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President and Commissioners. Adequate public notice has been given pursuant to the Open Publics Meeting Act. Notice have been posted at the board's website and have been delivered to the Department of State and to newspapers of broad circulation within the state.
Roll call.
Commissioner Holden.
Here.
Commissioner Solomon.
Here.
Commissioner Shivakula.
Here.
Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
President Fiordaliso.
Here. And our next meeting, Ada, is when?
Our next regular board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 5th at 10 a.m. via teleconference.
Thank you. And there will be no executive session today. Excuse me. I just want to welcome everyone who, in addition to staff and so on, welcome everyone who has tuned into the meeting. I hope you are all well and are staying safe. I counted the days that we've been working remotely, and I may be off a day or so, so forgive me if I'm incorrect. But it's either 38 or 39 days today where we have actually been working remotely. And I don't know about you, it seems like it extremely quick. But we also celebrated this past or last week Earth Day, which was actually the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and has, I think, given us all an opportunity, and I think the world in general, hopefully, opportunity to really reflect on the planet we live on, and what we can do to make it better and to make it available for future generations. And I think that's what we're all trying to do at this point, certainly here in New Jersey. So with that, do any other commissioners wish to make any opening remarks? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, the consent agenda, please.
Mr. President, there are no consent items listed at today's board meeting.
Very good. We will now proceed with the regular agenda and audits. There's nothing to consider. Energy, cable television, telecommunications, water, reliability and security. Also nothing to consider. Customer assistance, nothing to consider. And that brings us to clean energy and the reason for this special meeting that we're having today. And we're looking at item 8A. And we'll consider here waiving permission to operate rules for solar projects which are constructed but have not yet been able to receive final interconnection approvals from local authorities or the electric distribution companies because of the COVID crisis. And so I believe Scott and Ariane are going to present. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I will be presenting.
Good.
Good
Morning.
Commissioners.
Good afternoon, Scott.
It's good to hear your voices.
Commissioners.
Yes.
Excuse me. This is DAG Michael Beck. Perhaps I missed it, but did the board secretary proceed with the roll?
Yes,
I'm sorry, you
Yes.
broke up. I didn't get you.
we had roll call.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what he said.
And I believe he dropped off.
You wanted to know if the board secretary had done roll call.
Yes. Okay. All right, Scott, go.
Thank you, Commissioners, for accommodating us with this emergent agenda item today. Staff will recommend a process for registrants in the SREC registration program, or SRP, pipeline that would have completed all necessary steps to secure SREC eligibility, but were prevented by the COVID-19 emergency from obtaining municipal code inspections or their permission to operate from their electric distribution company prior to April 30th, 2020. This is the date which the board determined that the 5.1% of retail electric kilowatt hours sold in the state will be generated by solar generation connected to the distribution system in the state. We call it the 5.1% milestone. You will remember that the Clean Energy Act of 2018 requires the board to close the SRP on the state's attainment of 5.1% of retail electricity sales from eligible solar electric generation facilities. The board issued several orders and adopted rule amendments to the Renewable Portfolio Standard rules that address SRP closure, including the process for calculating and reporting on the 5.1% milestone, and how projects may demonstrate that they have commenced commercial operations prior to the date of milestone attainment. On February 27, 2019, the board further addressed the SRP closure process and ordered that a project's commencement of commercial operations would be determined by the date of issuance of the permission to operate, or PTO letter, by their local electric distribution company, or ADC. This directive was codified in the RPS rule amendments that became effective in February 2020. In mid-March, the COVID-19 outbreak produced a national state of emergency, and progressively more stringent restrictions on commercial activity began, with Executive Order Number 104 implementing aggressive social distancing measures to mitigate further spread of COVID-19 in New Jersey. On April 8, Executive Order 122 directed all non-essential construction to halt as of April 10, 2020. We've heard anecdotes from solar developers and the electric distribution company, their connections, staff, representatives, of local municipal inspection processes slowing down. And since municipal code compliance is a prerequisite to an EDC granting the permission to operate, the result has presented a barrier for some projects to achieve their commencement of commercial operations, despite being mechanically complete. On March 27, the board provided additional direction on the procedures to be followed for an orderly closure of the SRP. And in light of the COVID response, relaxed the requirement from the RPS rules that required submission of the post-construction package, which included that PTO letter, before the SRP registration expires, by extending the due date for the paperwork 90 days from the receipt of the PTO. The board reiterated that projects in the SRP that did not commence commercial operations by the 5.1% milestone would be eligible for the Transition Incentive Program. Following the publication of the monthly 5.1% milestone attainment report by staff on March 31st, the board determined by order on April 6th that the state would generate 5.1% of its retail electricity sales from solar, and the closure of the SRP would be effective on April 30th, 2020. The board ordered staff to close the SRP to new registrations on that date, and also stressed in this order that keeping safe and healthy during this epidemic is of paramount importance, and urged all parties to exercise responsible judgment in going on site and maintain social distancing. To be cognizant of the impact of the COVID response on the ability to commence commercial operations by those projects that are imminently complete, and the statutory mandate to close the SREC market to new entrants, staff recommends the board waive certain of its rules to allow flexibility in determining when projects commence commercial operations for SREC eligibility purposes, and approve a process for developers and owners to demonstrate that specific projects were mechanically complete by April 30th, 2020, and that but for the COVID-related health emergency and the restrictions on normal business activity that is necessitated, certain projects would have received the final inspections necessary for them to reach PTO prior to April 30th, 2020. And specifically to this end, staff recommends that the board require registrants seeking such relief to submit the following documentation to the SREC Registration Program Administrator. First, an affidavit from the project owner that the failure to obtain PTO was attributable to COVID-related closures of critical local government offices or delays in the issuance by the EDC of the PTO. Second, an affidavit signed by a person with direct personal knowledge stating that the project was complete, but for final inspections or final permission to operate prior to April 30th, 2020. And commissioners, on April 14, Governor Murphy signed a law allowing remote notarial acts, which will make these affidavits easier to execute than the old notary process would have been. The third requirement staff's recommending is date stamped pictures of the solar photovoltaic array, the inverter, and critical balance of system equipment showing that the system is mechanically complete. The fourth item that we're recommending that developers and owners submit to the SRP administrator are date stamped evidence that project representatives attempted to communicate with the local code officials, either through email or postal mail, with the local code officials requesting an inspection. Or if the project has already passed local code inspection, evidence that the application to energize, part 2 of the interconnection application process, was submitted to the EDC. An executed milestone reporting form that reflects the status of the project, including the date that the request for inspection was filed with the municipal official, the date of receipt of inspection approval, and date of submission of the application to energize with the EDC. And finally, any other such evidence as board staff and the SRP administrator may request. And finally, staff recommends that to be eligible for SRECs, projects that follow this process must still obtain all final inspections and submit their permission to operate from the local electric distribution company to the SRP administrator no later than 90 days following the end of the public health emergency or the state of emergency established by the Executive Order 103, whichever ends later. And it's important to stress that this recommendation is not relaxing that need to obtain the local code inspector's determination that the system has met code compliance, and it does not obviate the need for the permission to operate letter that comes from the local electric distribution company that determines that the system has met all of their requirements and all the board's rules. Thank you again, commissioners, for accommodating our emergent agenda item.
I will move the recommendation.
Second.
All right, thank you, Scott. You know, I think this is certainly appropriate. We have asked those entities that we regulate to accommodate our ratepayers out there. And for the most part, they all have done that. And we're very grateful for their cooperation and their sensitivity toward the ratepayers of the state of New Jersey. So the least we can do is try to make some accommodations in order to relieve some of the pressure and stress that some of these developers have been experiencing, and so on. And I believe that this action will certainly do that. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, roll call, Aida.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. That brings us to the next item, and I apologize to my colleagues. I told you when I spoke with you that there was only one item, but of course, once a meeting is announced, it seems like there are others that duplicate themselves or something. So there is one other one that we're going to consider today, and I know that all of you have been briefed on it. So Scott, and it revolves around rulemaking. Scott, are you also presenting this?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Ariane Benrey. I will be presenting on this item.
Okay. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
Good, good.
Yes, happy Monday.
Yes, happy
Um,
Monday.
Is it Monday? Wait a minute.
No. It's actually Saturday afternoon, Mariana. Look at the
Oh,
calendar.
thank you. I thought so.
Okay.
So good afternoon. This item is a rule proposal to amend the renewable portfolio standard rules and create new rules establishing a solar transition incentive program via a new section of the rules, NJAC 14:8-10. This rule proposal was actually previously presented and approved as item 8D at the board agenda meeting on March 27th, 2020. However, following the board's vote on March 27th, staff posted a courtesy advance copy of the rule proposal to the board website. Staff received a number of questions from stakeholders regarding this courtesy copy, and staff continues to learn from the implementation of the Transition Incentive Program prior to the close of the SREC registration program on April 30th, 2020, this coming Thursday. In light of these questions, staff is proposing that the board approve a new version of the rule proposal, which contains a limited number of modifications compared to the rule proposal previously approved on March 27th. These modifications are intended to clarify certain elements of the Transition Incentive Program, primarily relating to the registration length for transition incentive projects, as well as the process for registering transition incentive projects in GATS in order to enable the creation of TRECs. Staff is recommending that the board approve the publication of this rule proposal. If approved by the board, the rule proposal would be sent to the Office of Administrative Law for publication in the New Jersey Register and be open to public comments for 60 days before returning to the board for modification or for final approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, any comments? Hearing none, roll call, Ada?
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Ariane. There are no items under miscellaneous. If there are no other items or comments by my colleagues, may
I have a comment, Joe.
Yes.
Joe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just wanted
Diane.
to extend, condolences to Commissioner Holden, on all of our behalves, what a difficult time to have such a loss. And really haven't had the time to publicly offer condolences, so wanted to do so at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much. And I said to Mariana just a couple of days ago, I wish I had known Rich after reading his many, many accomplishments. I wish I had known him in his heyday, because I am
Yeah.
sure one heck of a interesting guy to sit down and talk with. And unfortunately, I did not have that opportunity, and so on. So he is something who has left really a his footprint here on Earth, and well done, Rich. Any other comments? I will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned, and thank you everyone who joined us today. Be safe and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.